Until around last year, I was trapped in the cycle of constant worrying, stress, and anxiety. I honestly felt like there was no way out. Until a good friend of mine, Elvin, who, by the way, is the founder of the channel Little Bit Better, recommended this amazing book to me. It's called Power of Now, written by Eckhart Tolle. And here are 9 lessons from it that can truly change your life, just as they did mine. Let me start with a short story. A beggar had been sitting by the side of a road for over 30 years. One day a stranger passed by. "Do you have some spare change?" mumbled the beggar and pulled out his old cap. "I'm sorry, but I have nothing to give you," said the stranger. Instead, he asked the beggar, "What's that you are sitting on?" "Nothing," replied the beggar. "Just an old box. I have been sitting on it for as long as I can remember." "Have you ever looked inside?" asked the stranger. "No, what's the point? There's nothing in there," said the beggar. Just have a look inside," insisted the stranger. After a while, the beggar managed to open the lid, and with excitement and disbelief, he saw that the box was filled with gold. You and I are the beggar, and it is about time we look inside. I hear you saying, "But Matt, wait! I am not sitting on any box." Well, I know. It is time to look inside something much closer, inside yourself. We tend to forget that our body is a powerful machine, consisting of multiple tools. And when a tool is broken, it can no longer be used for the purpose for which it was made. The human mind is a great example of an extremely powerful tool, so powerful that it often dictates our thoughts, emotions, and experiences. Sometimes you even see people speaking out loud and you ask yourself, "Is this guy crazy?" Please do not blame them. There may be so many questions going through their minds. You most likely know it yourself. What is the next task on my schedule? Or, how will I make money to pay my bills? And so on. This constant mental noise prevents us from finding inner peace. And worse, it creates a false perception of yourself in your mind that brings the feelings of fear and suffering. We become so closely tied to our thoughts that we forget that we are not our thoughts and that our mind is not the whole of who we are. As Eckhart Tolle says, thinking has become a disease. The mind is a superb instrument if used rightly, but if we use it wrongly, it becomes very destructive. He adds, to put it more accurately, it is not so much that you use your mind wrongly. You usually don't use it at all. It uses you. This is the disease. You believe that you are your mind. This is the delusion. The instrument has taken you over. While it's easy to forget it in today's rushed world, your life exists in the present moment, in the now. I mean really now. Everything that has already happened is the past, and what is about to come is the future. But you only exist in this very moment. On the other hand, the things such as your finances or your career, those are situations that exist in your mind. Too often, we allow our mind to consume our present moment, and in doing so, we fail to recognize the differences between our thought about reality and the reality itself. To help you understand this, visualize yourself standing in a room and your thoughts flying around you. The goal is to recognize that they are there, but they do not create you. The good news is that there is a way how we can free ourselves from our mind, and the even better news is that we will look at that right now. Lesson 2. Free yourself from your mind. When you remember the people talking out loud who we spoke about earlier, why do we call them mad? Don't most of us do exactly the same inside our heads? I know, most of the time it stays silent, but still, it's not much different. The voice you and I hear in our minds judges, comments, speculates, complains, and I could continue further. It isn't even necessarily relevant to the situation we find ourselves in. It often replays recent or past events, or rehearses or imagines future situations. Here it likes to imagine things going wrong and all possible negative outcomes, which we call worrying. This voice can quickly become our worst enemy. I have a personal experience with that. I still struggle with not being able to enjoy happy moments. Whenever I feel content or have one of those happy moments, this voice jumps in and starts its attacks. What about the deadlines? Haven't you forgotten that now is the time to be working, not just enjoying this moment, that you can do later? Eckhart Tolle says that freeing ourselves from our mind is the only true liberation. We can even take the first step right now. Whenever you hear the voice, just start listening to it as often as possible and start noticing any repeating patterns. But how do I spot them, you may ask? Well, they are the old gramophone records, stuck playing in your head for weeks, months, or even years. Eckhart calls this method watching the thinker. When you're listening to the voice, don't judge or condemn it. That is useless. As if you would try to kick it out from the front door, but it would come back in through the window. When you listen to a thought, you are aware not only of the thought, but also of you as the witness of the thought, says Tolle. That opens a new dimension of consciousness. As you listen to the thought, you feel really present and conscious in the moment. And that's what you need, because at that point, the thought loses its power over you and quickly subsides. Why? Because you're no longer feeding the mind by identifying with it. Another way we can disconnect from our thoughts is through simply directing our focus into the present moment. And more about that now. Lesson 3. The power of now. Imagine yourself sitting in a crowded room, surrounded by noise and chaos. You hear people chatting, laughing, the music playing, and so many other sounds. Your mind is racing with thoughts about the upcoming work meeting or the last fight with your partner. You feel trapped, unable to escape the clutches of your thoughts. This is the problem with our mind. It keeps us trapped in a never-ending cycle of thoughts and worries, preventing us from experiencing the present moment, the real now. The key to breaking free from this cycle is quite simple: practicing being truly present. This can be as simple as taking a few deep breaths and focusing on the activity you are currently doing. Focus on the breeze and the sunlight when walking your dog. Feel the smells of the food when cooking and enjoy every moment of it. When you wash your hands, pay attention to all the senses associated with it: the sound and feel of the water, the movement of your hands, the smell of the soap. Become aware of the silent but powerful sense of presence, says Tolle. This is a simple exercise each of us can do during our day. By doing this, we start to disidentify with our thoughts and create a sense of space between ourselves and our mind. We really start to see that the mind is simply a tool we have, not who we are. Suffering and negativity cannot exist in the present moment. They exist in time. Time is the medium through which these negative emotions thrive. If you live presently, suffering and negativity will not endure. So next time you find yourself trapped in the noise and chaos of your thoughts, take a deep breath and focus on the present moment. Remember, the mind will do what it does, but you don't have to be defined by it. Lesson 4. Identify your pain body. Have you ever met someone who seems completely overwhelmed by their emotions in certain situations? They flare up over the smallest things. You have encountered people like this, right? The reason behind this intense reaction could be something that Eckhart calls the pain body. It is a collection of past emotional hurts and traumas that we carry within us. It can often disrupt our lives as it triggers strong emotional reactions, especially in situations that bring up the past hurts. To identify your personal pain body, Eckhart suggests paying attention to any emotional reactions that feel intense, automatic, or out of proportion to what's happening. You'll know your pain body is kicking in when you suddenly feel a wave of negative emotions. It's that feeling that's hard to shake and pulls you into replaying old memories or imagining worst-case scenarios. As Eckhart says, an emotion arises at the place where mind and body meet. It's the body's reaction to our mind, or we could say, a reflection of our mind in the body. Because what is, for example, anger? It's the buildup of energy that forms each time we have a negative or hostile thought. The body is preparing for a fight. Research has also shown that strong emotions cause changes in our body's biochemistry. So when someone's pain body is activated, it takes over the control, transforming their personality and behavior. To free ourselves from the grip of the pain body, we must not resist these reactions and simply observe them instead. When we see the pain body's reactions as separate from ourselves, we can disidentify from it, as Eckhart puts it. Over time, this eases the pain body's grip on us, helping us regain control over our emotions. For some people, letting go of past pain won't be easy because it has become a significant part of their identity. The pain body also often plays a big role in our romantic relationships, especially during conflicts. It can cause us to react impulsively when our partner doesn't meet our expectations. By creating some distance from our own pain body, we can avoid those harsh reactions. Instead, we can offer a more open, accepting space that helps ease any negativity coming from our partner's pain body. Lesson 5. The ego. As you already saw, one of the core principles of the book is staying present in the moment. Eckhart Tolle even tells us that most human suffering is unnecessary and self-created when the unobserved mind is in control. The more we resist the present moment, the stronger our ego gets and the more we suffer. Eckhart describes the ego as a mental self-image that's built from our thoughts, emotions, and external labels, creating a false sense of ourselves. You might be asking what the external labels are. Those are the roles, identities, and possessions we attach to ourselves, like job titles, social status, achievements, or even group identities such as nationality, religion, or family roles. These labels become part of how we define ourselves and how we want others to see us. According to Tolle, our ego feeds on drama and comparison with others, which keeps us stuck in the past or worrying about the future instead of being present. It's often defensive, reactive, and fearful, feeling incomplete without external approval or success. Honestly, what I am going to say next will feel impossible for most of you. It did for me as well. Eckhart mentions that true freedom begins when we recognize when and how the ego operates. Only that will allow us to disidentify from it and experience a much deeper and authentic self that exists beyond these mental constructs. As I said, in today's world full of status and externalities, it feels basically impossible. I also have huge problems with reminding myself that I am not defined by the car I drive, nor the clothes I wear. The present moment is a threat for the ego because it relies on time to exist. Without thoughts of the past or future, the ego has no fuel, so the mind constantly distracts us with memories or worries about what's about to come. Our true nature is clouded, and we experience unhappiness and delay our joy. We tell ourselves that happiness can only be found in the future when we have achieved a certain goal or accomplishment. But in reality, true happiness can only be found in the present moment, which is all we ever truly have. Let me repeat this. The present moment is all we ever truly have. We can free ourselves from suffering by accepting the present moment and finding joy in it. The more time we spend in the present, the clearer our true nature becomes, and the happier and more fulfilled we are. Tolle says that it is our responsibility to maximize the gift that the present moment is by being focused and aware. Lesson 6. The truth about fear. The reason why you don't put your hand into fire is not because of fear. It's because you know you would get burned. I'm not gonna lie, this part of the book really got me thinking. Eckhart Tolle says that we don't need fear to avoid unnecessary danger, just a bit of intelligence and common sense. Many times we just need to apply lessons learned in the past. Tolle is mainly talking about the psychological condition of fear. He says that it is not tied to any concrete and immediate danger. It appears in many forms, such as anxiety, worry, dread, unease, and similar. This kind of fear is always of something that might happen, not of something that is happening now. So what happens is that you are here in the now, but your mind is somewhere in the future. And that creates, as the author calls it, an anxiety gap. You can always cope with the present moment, but you cannot cope with something that is only a projection of your mind. You cannot cope with the future. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of being hurt, and I could continue. In the end, it is all our ego's fear of destruction. That's why we, for example, feel the need to be right in an argument and prove the other person wrong. The ego just can't afford to be wrong. Eckhart mentions that as long as we are identified with our mind, we will have fear as our companion. He also adds that the vast majority of people live in that constant state of fear, only the intensity fluctuates. Well, I have to say that I am definitely in that group as well. While I am really trying, it is a very difficult discipline to disidentify from the mind. Fear definitely still is my companion. How about you? Do you live a fear-free life? Lesson 7. Relationships and lasting happiness. I would say that most of us have been taught to believe that happiness can be found through external sources, such as a romantic relationship or material possessions. But is true happiness a trip to Dubai, owning 2 supercars, living in a huge mansion? While those things are definitely great add-ons, Eckhart Tolle says that true happiness can only come from within. Do you remember how easily we were able to forget our worries as kids? Kids don't get their joy from others, but rather from within because they are free-spirited beings. Eckhart says that we often think we need someone else to make us feel complete, but that's a misconception. We are already whole on our own, and a healthy relationship can only add to our lives with love, trust, and mutual support. The problem is, when we enter a relationship without first finding fulfillment within ourselves, we're likely setting ourselves up for disappointment. Only with inner peace with ourselves, we bring positive energy into our relationships. We no longer rely on others to make us happy. Instead, we share our happiness with them. This creates a healthier dynamic of the relationship and a much more fulfilling experience. I will repeat myself, but once again, the key is to focus on the present moment instead of searching for happiness in the future or dwelling on the past. Only when we find peace in the now can we create lasting happiness for ourselves and those around us. And if you feel the need to judge or change your partner, you create the perfect storm for troubles between you two. On the other hand, if you choose to accept your partner as they are, your relationship will strengthen. Lesson 8. Beyond happiness and unhappiness. Hand on heart, we believe that happiness is the key to feeling peaceful and content with our life. And while it might not be easy for us to acknowledge it, this belief is also what often leads to disappointment and dissatisfaction. Why? Because happiness is a temporary emotion that comes and goes. The difference between happiness and inner peace is profound. Happiness depends on things going well. Inner peace does not. Negative experiences can teach us valuable lessons about what is real and what is not, what matters and what doesn't. But as Eckhart writes in the book, do you truly know what is positive and what is negative? Do you have the complete picture? There have been many people for whom limitation, failure, loss, illness, or pain in whatever form turned out to be their greatest teacher. It taught them to let go of false self-images and superficial, ego-dictated goals and desires. It gave them depth, humility, and compassion. It made them more real. From this perspective, things are not categorically good or bad, but rather there is a higher good, as Eckhart calls it. This higher good encompasses everything, including the things we perceive as bad. Instead of trying to avoid the experiences we perceive as bad, it is crucial we fully experience and feel them. By doing so, we can practice forgiveness and let each moment be as it is, without holding on to any resentment or grudges. Accepting things as they are helps quiet the ego and allows a wiser part of ourselves to come forward. The main idea is to accept the present moment instead of resisting it. Lesson 9. The Power of Surrender. When I was reading the book, I had a slight problem with the word surrender. It reminded me of defeat or giving up. If I surrender, wouldn't it mean I just gave up on life at that point, not trying to improve myself or things around me? I was thinking to myself. But Eckhart describes true surrender as something different. It is the simple but profound wisdom of giving in to the flow of life instead of resisting it. It means to accept the present moment unconditionally and without reservation. Tolle describes it on a great and quite funny example. If you were stuck in the mud somewhere, you're not going to say, "All right, I resign myself to being stuck in the mud forever." Resignation is not surrender. You don't need to accept an undesirable or unpleasant life situation. Nor do you need to deceive yourself and say that there is nothing wrong with being stuck in the mud. No, you recognize fully that you want to get out of it. You then narrow your focus down to the present moment without mentally labeling it in any way. This means that there is no judgment of the present. Therefore, there is no resistance and no emotional negativity. Then you take action and do all that you can to get out of the mud. Such action I call positive action, says Eckhart. It is far more effective than negative action, which arises out of anger, despair, or frustration. Until you achieve the desired result, you keep practicing surrender by avoiding judgments about the present moment. When you surrender, you're in this state of flow. You know what needs to be done, and you take action. You're focused on doing one thing at a time. But don't confuse surrender with an attitude of, "I can't be bothered anymore," or "I just don't care anymore," says the author. If you look closely, you'll realize that this attitude is filled with negativity, particularly hidden resentment. It's not genuine surrender. It's actually a form of resistance that's just disguised. So, as you practice surrendering, take a moment to check inside yourself for any leftover feelings of resistance. According to Eckhart, it is crucial to stay alert during this process. Otherwise, you might find that some resistance is still hiding as a thought or unacknowledged emotion somewhere in a corner. The Power of Now is not an easy book to summarize. These were my main lessons that I took from the book. But I am sure you will be able to find plenty of new insights that might be important for you specifically. Now, if you want to stay with me, I can recommend watching the video you now see on the left. You will learn about the teachings of Joe Dispenza. On the right, you can learn how to change your life in just 90 days. My name is Matt, and I thank you for watching.